So hi, this is On the Bright Side. I'm Neil Gordon. I'm the CEO at the Discovery Museums. On the Bright Side is a production of the Acton Boxborough United Way, and the Discovery Museum has been trying to help out with this. We're really fortunate to have with us today Senator Jamie Eldridge, who is our state senator representing us since 2009. Senator's district includes 14 different communities throughout Metro West in Middlesex and Worcester counties. So, Senator, welcome to On the Bright Side. It's good to see you.
Great, Neil. Great to see you too. Thanks for reaching out, and really happy to be on the bright side.
Yeah, I know you've been a busy person, but I just want to ask you a quick question. I know you grew up in Acton. You know, what's sort of your fondest memories of growing up in Acton? Why is it an important community to you?
Yeah. I grew up in South Acton, so sort of near the South Acton train station. So you have a lot of history there, and you also still have a lot of farms that are still there. So it was more rural then. And I will say one of my first memories growing up in Acton was my neighbor was one of the first employees of the Discovery Museum.
All right.
Yep. So I went to the Discovery Museum as a kid. You know, I think now of just how active and how many committees and groups and civic organizations there are in Acton, and I think that has really just changed over the past 10 or 15 years, and I think it was a much quieter place back then, but definitely a great place to grow up in, and particularly love growing up in South Acton.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of change, and you've obviously been a really important part of the leadership of our community and helping us change and evolve as a community. So, since the pandemic, how has your work life changed?
Yeah, I still remember the Senate caucus when legislators meet at the State House just the week before March 10th, and we passed a very small supplemental budget of $15 million to go out to boards of health. And I remember the Senate president just saying, it's possible you might have to work a little bit from home. And then the next week, Governor Baker came down with his shelter-in-place order. The State House, pretty much we were told not to come in for ourselves, for our staff to work from home. And really, I would say within a matter of days, with people being laid off, with people having questions about the schools, towns and cities figuring out how they were going to go forward with town meeting, is that the work became sort of from about 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. just a barrage of emails and social media and text messages, because suddenly all these things that generally are easier to solve through a meeting, say at the State House, turned into 15 emails.
But the state and in your position, you're seeing so many issues and things come up that we have never seen before. What have been sort of the important policies that you've all been working on to help support the community?
Yeah, I mean, the first wave of things was just giving flexibility to towns and cities. Towns and cities, including in my district, had already scheduled their town meeting, their municipal elections, so getting those either delayed or making them more flexible so that boards could have meetings over Zoom. So that was sort of the first wave, this sort of so-called muni relief legislation. And then it was right into unemployment legislation, is making it easier for now the hundreds of thousands of people across the state applying for unemployment, as well as more categories of people. So just helping people maneuver through the system, including a lot of quite honestly middle-class families in Acton and Boxborough that just never had to deal with that. And then for those sort of more vulnerable populations, people that knew they couldn't afford the next month's rent, worried about eviction, passing a moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, which was a bill that I was very involved with. And then about sort of social safety net. So, the district I represent, as you said, 14 communities, includes extremely diverse communities, and a significant percentage of which, for a variety of reasons, are not eligible for unemployment or the Federal CARES Act. And so, how to provide them with food relief, explain to them their rights as tenants, and figure out how to sort of get them through the pandemic, many of whom are frontline workers doing the critical work that we're all relying upon.
Right. I know you're very, very involved with many parts of the community and always have your ear to the ground and understanding what's going on. What have been the ways during all of this that you've been able to keep track of the pulse of the community and understand what's going on and what people need?
That has been a real challenge because, obviously in the pandemic of stay-at-home era, just not getting out and learning directly from people, what they're seeing. And I will say, for those populations that were already on the edge of being financially or food insecure, they often don't know, how to reach out to their elected officials. Um, I have found, often social media, especially Facebook, people are more comfortable to contact me that way through government, email or the phone lines. I'm very proud to have a very diverse district, so staff people from a lot of different backgrounds, and so a lot of people have been reaching out to them and here, getting word of mouth there. And then, like today, I was on the Acton Boxborough Food Insecurity Group, and that's where I get a lot of information, about what's going on in Acton and Boxborough, and there's similar efforts going on in some of my other communities. Though I will say, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on the ABUW video, really, really impressed with how comprehensive the services are for Acton and Boxborough residents. We're incredibly lucky, and I'm just so grateful for all the services from the school district to the town to the nonprofits. Their level of service and really being so thoughtful about making sure that we don't leave anyone out of this system.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate because I've been talking to so many people who are doing all the things you just mentioned, and it really is an amazing community, and the efforts people are putting out there right now are really remarkable. Um, what kind of challenges are you seeing, sort of, for local organizations and local governments around the state?
I would say one real challenge, especially from the nonprofit sector, is scale. And so, how do we provide support to nonprofits? There's been some discussion about whether it's foundations, whether it's government support is providing funding to nonprofits to allow them to scale up and hire more employees to manage the workload of more cases and greater need for people that are sort of falling through the social safety net. So that's definitely a big thing I've heard from a lot of community groups. And I think they themselves are struggling with, how do we get to a lot of these vulnerable populations that, again, really are challenged at reaching out and explaining, their needs. How do we make them comfortable to go to the food pantry or apply for assistance? And I think just a lot of times there's that barrier that those that need the support the most, it's often hard for them to communicate that need.
Yeah, exactly. Just to switch the subject ever so slightly, this is a year of both voting and the census. Um,
Yes.
what do you see as the impact that we're likely to have on both of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, certainly on the voting front, there's been a real push to allow for voting by mail because either cities or towns don't want to open their doors to voting in the fall, or they just realize that a lot of Massachusetts voters won't feel comfortable to come to the polls, especially if they're health compromised or senior citizens. So actually yesterday, we had the Joint Committee on Election Laws had a 4-hour virtual hearing on a number of bills to allow voting by mail. And I know that the town of Acton, and I think Boxford did the same thing, is they mailed every single voter this application to vote in the upcoming Acton elections and Boxford elections. So, that's certainly been a big issue, and we really need to pass the bill, very quickly to make sure that's an option for the fall. So I'm fully in support of that. I'm hoping that can become law in the next couple of weeks.
I am. I'm encouraged to hear that that's being worked on. It's a good thing in a lot of different ways. I mean, it's a challenging situation. You're seeing lots of people struggling, but you're also seeing people sort of rise to the occasion. Is there anything in particular that sort of is the bright side of all of this for you?
Absolutely, and you really have to emphasize the positive acts and the acts of goodwill. And so I appreciate this production of Brightside doing that. And in many ways, the examples that I'm most impressed with is sort of the people stepping up as volunteers. Just a couple examples is my dry cleaners in South Acton, the wife who's a seamstress, she went about, making about 200 face masks that I ended up delivering to Acton Medical and to Emerson Hospital. Another constituent in Acton who somehow had access to a number of disposable face masks, and so she would literally drop off, 100 or so to my mailbox every week, and I was actually giving them to Roche Brothers and some of the other grocery stores that early on didn't have access to PPE. And then, I would say a lot of the churches that have really, and synagogues that have stepped up to provide, raising money or to provide support for those vulnerable populations. So that's been really inspiring to see. I would also say on the healthcare front, having a number of friends who are nurses at Emerson Hospital that are right now, taking care of COVID-19 positive patients. The good news is that Emerson Hospital is pretty stabilized. There's not too many patients there with COVID-19, but the work that these nurses are doing, going in, each and every day, putting their lives at risk, and just doing great work to protect really the entire community. So that's been really great to see, and I do try to highlight those things because it's very easy to get overwhelmed by the sort of doom and gloom about what our society is going through right now.
Yeah. It's good to know that there's just a lot of support out there from lots of folks during a time like this. And thank you for telling us a whole bunch of great examples of what you've seen out there. And thank you for everything you've always done for the community, in particular, all the things that you're doing now. And thanks for sharing your story today.
I appreciate it, Neil. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to seeing this all put together, and great to see you even virtually. And I hope to see you sometime this year at the Discovery Museum.
As well. Thank you for joining the Bright Side today.